in here,
Yeah.
and here, there's two Gretsch drum kits. What happened was in about 1969, I got my first Gretsch drum kit, which is, people who are enthusiasts about Gretsch drums, it's one with the round badge, which is the most collectible one. And that was the kit. It was Burgundy Sparkle, it was called. That was the finish on it. And it was that was the kit that was used when I was in Patto. Also the kit that was used on when Patto split up and went their own ways. It was also the kit that I used on Perfect Day, the Lou, other Lou Reed tracks as well, and things by the Scaffold and other stuff. I used that kit, Burgundy Sparkle kit. It was a 22-inch bass drum, 16/16 tom-tom and a 13/9 tom-tom. And then when I was working, doing a gig, about 3 days before I was off to America to do a tour, the road crew who were driving the equipment in a van had a crash and ran into a building site, and some of the scaffolding poles went through the van, narrowly avoiding, one went under the driver's seat, narrowly avoiding killing him probably. It's a big long scaffolding pole, and it smashed a big hole in the side of the bass drum, and it also damaged the 16x16 tom-tom. So I couldn't take that kit to America, so when I got to New York I bought another Gretsch drum kit, which was a different sizes. It was 20, 14/14 and a 12x8, and that was in a yellow finish, canary yellow, and it's lacquered. It's not covered in plastic like most drums, it's a lacquered wood. And that was a nice little kit, different sizes. And I was touring. That was the kit we used on the Rutles and lots of other stuff, Joan Armour Trading and lots of other stuff that I did. And that kit, the disaster that happened to that kit was, I was working with a rock and roll band called the Flying Saucers, and they did rockabilly stuff. And we were doing a tour of Germany, and we played in Osnabrück in this club full of squaddies. And all the gear was humped outside to load it into the van after the gig. And so all the people come out of the club, and somebody stole the 12x8 tom-tom. For why, I don't know. What good is it? What good is a 12x8 Gretsch tom-tom to a squaddy? Anyway, they stole it. And then I luckily found another 12x8 tom-tom in a shop in London. Another Gretsch with a square badge, which is not so collectible. And then what happened then was the bass drum that had the scaffold pole go through it and the tom-tom, I had them mended. I took them to a drum shop, I forget which one in London, and they mended them, and they recovered them in the same colour yellow that my other kit was covered in. So when I did a really big tour, like Roy Harper did a really big tour, I could use this humongous big drum kit that was all the same colour. It looked really smart. Because Roy had a chance to do a big tour with all the gear for, it was all Pink Floyd's. He's very friendly with all the Pink Floyd boys. And we use a lot of their PA. We probably use their monitor system for our PA. And we use a lot of the lighting system that come up out of a box. And lights! And I used to use this humongous big drum kit, all the same colour. But it was all different eras. I think the first kit, as I said, was 1969 that I bought. The second kit was 1974, and went on from there really. And then I was involved in having a serious car crash, hence the shepherd's crook, and I had this pedal. I couldn't use a normal hi-hat pedal because my leg sticks out, and I'd have to use 4-foot long sticks to reach the cymbals. So I had this pedal. I went and saw somebody who lived near me in Suffolk, a guy called Rex Garrod, and Rex was an amazing character. He would perform tricks that you could do things. He designed a little car that was used on a kids TV program. I think it was called Brum, and its doors would open and its headlights would move about, and it would say yes and no and bounce up and down and drive itself around, all done on a controls. And he also made some giant polo mints that would roll around on the advert and were all remote controlled. And he did a lot of work on James Bond things in James Bond films where they had all weird, you know, watches that also blew up and cigarettes that were also poisonous darts and things like that. He did all that, and he designed that. I'd sat with my legs stuck out like it normally is, and he measured everything up and came up with this hi-hat pedal. The piece of grey plate which is on the floor, he told me was off of the first Concorde that was ever made, which they broke up. And he went and bought some of the bits of metal, and that was part of the first ever Concorde that was broken up for scrap. That's a part of the first ever Concorde. And that bit of wire there was used on a Superman film, where they tried towing a Superman, a stuntman dressed as Superman, behind a helicopter. But all that happened was the helicopter flew through the air, towing the stuntman, and all he did was spin round and round and round screaming. So it didn't really work out very well.